Foreign Minister, oh, by the way, one reminder. Pretend that you've already done your speech because it's going to air tomorrow. Okay, here we go. 3, 2, 1. Mr. Foreign Minister, thank you so much for taking the time to join us here. So much going on in the European Union right now, revolving around the Middle East. You've got an outgoing chief, foreign policy chief, that's not been kind to Israel. Hopefully a new one coming in that will be more so. What's that transition going to be like in the broader spectrum?
Well, you know, the European Parliament elections have changed the landscape in the European Parliament. Not as much as we hoped for it, but slightly. The third largest group in the European Parliament is the one we joined. This is called the Patriots for Europe, which is a gathering of patriotic right-wing conservative parties which stand up for national interest and carry out a absolutely sovereignist type of policy. So this group has now been excluded, not in a very democratic way, from having elected officials, either deputy speakers of the parliament or leaders of committees or vice chairpersons of these committees. So it is not a very democratic structure. Let's put it this way. Well, I had a lot of debates with the High Representative, the Foreign Policy Chief, as you have said. We were not really on the same page in any issues. Relationship and outreach to Israel was one of the areas where we heavily disagreed with each other. We'll see how it's going to play out with the new High Representative. A former Prime Minister. Hopefully she will be able to play a balanced, stabilizing role. I'm looking forward. She's going to be the fourth High Representative I worked together with. So far I didn't have too good experiences, unfortunately, but hopefully now there will be some game changer.
Joseph Borrell on his way out, Kaja Kallas, the Estonian leader, former Estonian leader coming in. You know, the way the region and the world is shaping up right now, it makes for what we call strange bedfellows and strange alliances. And sometimes, you know, you have friends who are also enemies of your other friends. And we're seeing that right now with Hungary, obviously a great relationship with Israel, but a burgeoning and strengthening relationship with Iran. Kind of, how does Hungary right now play off those two relationships, seeing as how the world is sometimes divided between Israel and its partners and Iran and its partners?
Right. So when it comes to Israel, Israel is a strategic partner, a strategic ally for Hungary. You know that the biggest Jewish community of Central Europe is living in Hungary. And if you ask them, you will see that you will receive the answer that they feel absolutely insecurity in Hungary, given the fact that our government makes it absolutely sure that everyone, regardless of faith, belief, religion, must be safe. Whenever you come to Budapest, you visit the Central Synagogue, you will never see guards there with big weapons because simply it's not necessary. You will see flourishing cultural life of the Jewish community. You will see great events, again, without guards with weapons, because simply it is not necessary in Hungary. Israel's national football team plays all its home games in Hungary for the European qualifiers, now in Nations League, and I assume the World Cup qualifications, that's going to be the same. Last time Hungary played against Israel in a crowded stadium. The whole audience was clapping after the national anthem of Israel was played. In the meantime, Belgium was not brave enough to play against Israel in Belgium, so they gave up their home field advantage and came to play in Hungary. So I think that shows very clearly that Hungary is the safest place for the Jewish community in Europe, and we are proud of that. As similarly, we are proud of those Hungarians, a lot of them, who are now loyal citizens and inhabitants of Israel. And these two communities, Hungarians in Israel, the Jewish community in Hungary, will always be a very important point of connection between the two countries. In the meantime, you asked me about our relationship to Iran. Well, that relationship is a pragmatic, practical relationship. I always have the approach that it's much better to talk to someone than not to talk to someone. Now, I understand that might be situations when it's impossible, but then must be others who do the job. So therefore, I think it can be useful if Hungary, a Central European country, currently the rotating presidency of the European Union, can have a reach out to Iran as well and can talk to the Iranians. Our relationship is mostly based on practical things like economic cooperation, trade cooperation, and it is obvious that in many issues we see the world in a totally different way. We see the developments, we see the challenges in totally different way. But it's not only Iran, but all the countries in the world. What I'm going to tell you now is that we, even if we don't agree in anything, we still prefer the channels of communication to be kept open than keeping them closed, because if you have a channel of communication open, you can avoid major misunderstandings, which then can lead to some very bad developments you better avoid.
We've seen a lot of countries, I mean, Qatar, Turkey, Brazil now especially, trying to burnish their foreign policy credentials by trying to play the role of peacemaker between partners that might otherwise be on opposite sides of an issue. Does Hungary have any desire to go into the mix here and try to bridge gaps between Israel and Iran if it's eventually asked to do so, seeing that you seem to have good relationships with each country?
Well, you know, it depends only on one thing, rather two. Whether the two countries want us to do so. So in case there's an outreach from both sides asking us to do the job, we would be happy to do so. But so far, no such kind of a request came. And we are a small country, we are not a world power, so we don't want to seem to be more important than we are. So in case there is a request, of course we try to deliver, but no request has been placed yet.
In due time, I'm sure. Looking at the broader UN, I mean, we're gathered here at the General Assembly. The world seems to be in complete disarray right now. In terms of your speech here at the General Assembly, what point were you trying to drive home, and where do you see the UN being of value in the short term and both in the longer term in trying to solve the world's problems?
I think it's extremely important to remind ourselves why the UN has been established many decades ago. And if you think back, then it's obvious that the United Nations as an organization was established not as a group of like-minded countries, but as an organization which offers platform for everyone to talk to everyone about everything. So here UN serves as a platform for those countries even who are hostile to each other, who hate each other, who would not talk to each other anywhere in the world. But the UN is a platform where such kind of negotiations, talks can take place in a legitimate way. But now, United Nations cannot exercise this role. Why? Because many of the leading powers of the world are behaving in a way which brings forward the memory of the Cold War. So the fact that the big powers are not ready to talk to each other, the fact that they reject any kind of direct communication, the fact that those who speak about peace and argue in favor of peace are immediately considered as puppets and the Trojan horses and spies and whatever, that all shows to or points to a direction that the world can be easily divided into blocks again. And I'm coming from a country which has suffered a lot because of the world used to be divided into blocks. 40 years of our lives have lost, totally. And we don't want to come back to such a situation anymore. Therefore, we argue in favor of the next age or the next period of time to be characterized by connectivity and not by blocks, you know. And here UN could and should play a role. Whether UN can play this role, well, I have no idea. Currently, we are far away of that. but I do rely on the wisdom and openness and smartness of many here that this should be changed. And of course, a lot depends on the November elections here in the United States. So the outcome there would have a huge impact on the global security situation and on formulating the future.
It seems like the world is waiting right now for November to see how it all plays out. Obviously, your country and your leader in particular, Viktor Orban, has a strong relationship with Donald Trump. I mean, depending on the election and who wins, I mean, which way do you see the world going?
Well, I consider politics as a job based on experience. So we have an experience how the world looked like during the term of President Trump in office, and we see the current situation. I also remember how the bilateral relations between US and Hungary looked like under President Trump's term and now, or before President Trump. So if you ask me, then from the perspective of our bilateral relations, from the perspective of future global security, President Trump would be the better solution for sure. But since we are not Americans, we cannot influence that. So it's up to the Americans to decide. We will, of course, respect the decision of the American citizens, but it is allowed to cross fingers, and we do cross fingers for President Trump, obviously.
I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you the situation with the exploding pagers in Lebanon and the source of it. There have been reports that it originated, those pagers originated and were manufactured by a company in Hungary. Obviously, your government and your law enforcement are investigating the situation. There have been reports that those pagers may have been manufactured elsewhere as well. Can you give our audience an update on where that investigation stands?
Sure. I'm really angry with these fake news being circulated because these are based on lies. These are based on lies. These are fake news. But circulating fake news on such a dangerous issue can put a hazard, a risk, a danger on the citizens of a country in certain regions. So therefore, those who have been circulating these fake news about Hungary are very irresponsible. I tell you what we found out. These pagers have not been produced in Hungary. These pagers have never been to Hungary. No Hungarian company got in physical contact with these pagers. So we have nothing to do with the pagers, we have nothing to do with the production, we have nothing to do with the whole issue. So therefore I would like to ask everyone who feels a bit of responsibility about the news which he or she circulates, not to confuse Hungary into this matter.
So this consulting company that's been widely reported in the news, it doesn't exist in Hungary, or it had nothing to do with the situation?
They do exist with one person. They do trade mediation, let's put it this way. So they have mediated between two companies and they have helped the transaction to be made, but they never produced this thing, they never got in touch with it, they never had a physical connection. So, and trade mediation, trade service, trade advice, that's a job which you do without, getting in touch with the product, without knowing what the product is aimed at. So with the substance or with the essence of the issue, we have nothing to do.
It's very much a developing story. Mr. Foreign Minister, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.